It is Tuesday. It's the 24th of September. I'm Monita Rajpal. This is CNN News Center, live from Hong Kong. Our top story today. In just the last few hours, CNN correspondents outside the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi have heard loud gunfire and an explosion that suggests the terror siege that started on Saturday isn't over yet. An official police Twitter feed says government forces now have full control of the mall. They say they are carrying out a sweep. It is believed at least some gunmen from the Somali terrorist group Al-Shabaab are still inside. We don't know if there are any hostages as well. Kenya's Red Cross says at least 62 people have been killed. 65 others remain missing. The Kenyan Interior Ministry says 3 terrorists have been killed. Let's get you the very latest now. Let's go live to CNN's Zain Verjee, who is in the vicinity of the Westgate shopping plaza. Zain, so we're hearing these explosions that are taking place and gunfire in the mall, but at the same time, the police are saying they have full control of the mall itself. What's going on?
We're hearing bursts of gunfire a lot more frequently, and just a few moments ago there was a tear gas canister that was fired, but that was really just for crowd control.
All right. Zain, thank you very much for that. Zain Verjee there, live for us from just near the Westgate shopping mall there in Nairobi. Well, at least 62 people died in this siege, but the numbers don't do justice to the people behind them. A famous Ghanaian poet, a couple in Kenya doing development work, a young radio host, and so many others were caught in a crisis that supposedly came from nowhere. Atika Schubert reports.
A portrait of the fallen, extraordinary achievers on the international stage, and people from every walk of life.
Victims of the attack at Nairobi's Westgate Mall come from all over the world. It would seem the same could be said about the perpetrators. Now, we've had no official confirmation on the number of gunmen or their identities, but Kenya's foreign minister says 2 or 3 of them came from the United States, and she says she heard at least one was a British citizen. The chief of the Kenya Defense Forces says authorities have an idea who these people are or may have been, and says they are clearly multinational. CNN senior international correspondent Nick Robertson is following this angle of the story for us. He joins us now live from CNN London. Nick, any more light being shed about the identities of these would-be attackers?
Well, the only other information that we've had about these attackers...
Nick, thank you very much for that. Nick Robertson there live for us from CNN London. Well, from Mogadishu in Somalia to Minnesota in the United States, it's known that Al-Shabaab militants often go there to recruit. Minnesota is Minneapolis' largest city, and it has more Somali Americans than anywhere else in the country. CNN's Martin Savage is there. He joins us now live for more on any community reaction there. Marty?
I think there is a sense of dread, Monita. I mean, the moment that news began filtering out of Kenya that there could be Americans involved
Martin,
in this...
thank you very much for that. Martin Savage there live for us from Minneapolis, Minnesota. You are watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. You are watching a special extended edition of CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. I'm Monita Rajpal. High-stakes international issues will be on the table as the 68th UN General Assembly kicks off. Syria continues to dominate the agenda, with many officials hoping for agreement on a UN resolution backing the Syria chemical weapons deal. And all eyes will be on Iran's new president, Hassan Rouhani, who says he wants to mend fences with the West. Jim Sciutto has more now on the possibilities of a diplomatic thaw.
For years, it was a UN General Assembly annual ritual.
We'll hopefully be speaking with Jim just a little bit later on here on the show. Now, if President Obama does meet Mr. Rouhani, it will be the first meeting between leaders of the U.S. and Iran in more than 30 years and may signal a thaw between the two countries. Becky Anderson looks at the volatile history between the United States and Iran over the past 6 decades. You're watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. More on our top story, how a husband and wife tried to save the lives of... You are watching a special extended edition of CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. A shopping mall in Nairobi remains under lockdown as Kenyan security forces try to root out a group of terrorists holed up inside. The militants stormed the busy upmarket complex on Saturday. Thank you, Zain Verjee there in Nairobi. Well, Kenya's president says more than 175 people were wounded in this horrific siege. Arwa Damon spoke with some of the survivors to get their stories in their own words.
There's nothing that would prepare you. That feeling of this is it.
You're watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. Now that the ill-fated cruise liner Costa Concordia had... You are watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. As we told you a little bit earlier in the show, U.S. President Barack Obama and Iran's new president, Hassan Rouhani, are among the world leaders expected to speak at the UN today. With more on this, CNN's chief U.S. security correspondent Jim Sciutto joins us now live from New York. Jim, good to see you. As with events like this, the UN General Assembly, there's usually a headline story that emerges or sometimes even precedes the actual speeches. A lot of people are saying Syria is going to dominate. What more are you hearing?
Well, Syria and Iran, clearly. Last week we were talking about Syria, particularly...
Thank you very much. Jim Sciutto there, live for us from New York. And just adding on to this the story, a Russian state news agency says UN investigators are expected to return to Syria on Wednesday. Itar TASS says they'll continue investigating allegations chemical weapons have been used, and not only in last month's attack that left hundreds of people dead. Another story we want to bring you up to date on, an Egyptian news service says all right, Erin, thank you very much. Erin McLaughlin there live from CNN London. You are watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong as parts of Southeast Asia deal with heavy rain. Welcome back. You are watching a special extended edition of CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. At least 19 people, mostly children, have been killed in the northern Philippines. State media say many of those killed many of the dead were killed in landslides caused by heavy monsoon rains. The country's Disaster Management Council has said that some areas are still under more than 1 meter of water. Well, with more on the rain affecting the Philippines and the rest of the region, let's go to our meteorologist Mari Ramos at the World Weather Center. Mari?
What a tragic situation there for the Philippines. You know, they just had the onslaught of that typhoon. Usagi has moved rain showers at best. Most of the heavy rain will be in areas to the north, as you can see here. Maybe 3 to 8 centimeters of rainfall over the next couple of days. Back to you.
All right. Mari, thank you.
Sure.
BlackBerry is on the verge of being sold, folks. The smartphone maker says it's conditionally agreed to a takeover worth $4.7 billion. As Richard Quest reports, it's been a long way down for the company that helped create the smartphone.
It was the essential device for the titans of global business and politics.
And the winner is a man from the U.S. state of South Carolina. This lucky gentleman went to a convenience store to pick up some hot dog buns, as you do, and walked out a multimillionaire. He stopped by this store and decided to play the lottery for the second time in his life. Smart thing to do. You are watching CNN News Center. I'm Monita Rajpal at CNN Hong Kong. Thank you for joining us. I'll bring you an update of the headlines in just a few minutes.